So my third guy on my list, the last guy we'll talk about here, I've got a wide receiver too. And he's an older guy. This would be a 1-year situation, I would imagine. And it's a name that everybody's heard because we talked about him a bunch last offseason. And here we are getting the train rolling once again for DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver from the Tennessee Titans. Now, DeAndre Hopkins, let's just go through it, break it all down. 31 years old, but he just had a 1,000-yard season and 7 touchdowns on a Tennessee Titans defense that was a dumpster fire, for lack of a better term. And I don't even think I want a better term. That's actually what I really want to call it. Ryan Tannehill wasn't great. He was injured. Will Levis was a rookie. He showed a couple flashes, but overall, not very productive, not efficient. The whole thing was kind of a mess. And yet here's DeAndre Hopkins out there, 17 games, played every game at 31, showed he still got gas in the tank. They could save $10.5 million by cutting or trading him. So this seems very likely to happen, especially you've got a new head coach, a new offensive system coming in, a second-year quarterback. It's going to be a youth movement in Tennessee. There's not going to be any room. There's going to be no interest in retaining the services of a 31-year-old wide receiver at that cap hit. I don't see it happening. So we already know that there was some interest, mutual interest between the Browns and Hopkins last offseason, but it was just the money he was looking for at the time. It did not line up with what the Browns could realistically afford to do. And, he'd be the type of player I'd look, honestly, if they wanted to incentivize him a little more, it could be even like a 2-year deal, maybe around $20 million, more guaranteed money bonuses up front that would kind of keep the team options that they can move on from him next season if now we want to cut him and all that kind of stuff. So based on his age and all that, but he signed last year with Tennessee, 2 years, $26 million. And I know this has been a few years since he played with Deshaun Watson, but from 2017 to 2019 in Houston with Deshaun, DeAndre Hopkins was a first-team All-Pro all 3 seasons that he played there with Deshaun Watson. He averaged 1,371 yards a year and 10 touchdowns a season with Watson. So I know he's older now, but he showed that he can still go out there and put up 1,000-yard, receiving season. He'd be my ideal guy, honestly, if the Browns cannot trade for somebody like Brandon Ayuk. I don't love really any of the names that are most likely to be free agents. We saw T. Higgins got tagged by the Bengals. I expect Michael Pittman, Mike Evans to both pretty much be unavailable for the Browns. Maybe a guy like Calvin Ridley in free agency, but other than that, I don't feel like the free agent market is all that great. You got to remember, good young wide receivers for multi-year deals don't really hit free agency. So a guy like Hopkins could be the next best option. You sign him, put him out there with Amari Cooper. Like you said, Kenny, put Elijah Moore back in the slot and let him dominate in the intermediate area of the field. Now you've got Cedric Tillman and David Bell on a rotation in their roles. Maybe you bring in another cheap guy that's just got like a straight end speed, bring him in for a Marquise Goodwin role. I would still draft a guy even in the second or third. At this point in time, while we're recording this, I'm kind of pretty high on Roman Wilson from Michigan. So there are options to pair with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins that if it ends up being a 1-year thing, cool. We've got options moving forward, but I get a little excited thinking about putting him back with Watson for one last run.
Yeah, he definitely would have the chemistry, but I would kind of also see it as the same as like the Courtland Sutton thing as well, except I would probably want to keep Courtland a little bit longer based on age. But like what you're doing, and I think what we're kind of both getting at is with either one of those potential pickups, in Mythland here, Cedric Tillman's going to be the beneficiary of knowledge of how to get open, how to win these 50-50 balls. This is how you take care of yourself as a receiver. This is how you kind of roll. Like we want him to eventually morph into those people. Whether that happens or not, at least you're putting those pieces into place to kind of translate into that. But I like what you have to say too, in the back end of the round, just get a burner in the back end of the draft and see if you can make it. Just don't hold on to it like you held on to Schwartz for all those years. Like cut your losses real fast if it don't work out.
That's exactly right. So we'll see what the Browns decide to do at all these different positions. But the names that we brought on this episode, obviously we just wrapped up with 2 wide receivers. The Browns are going to heavily address this position. It's a position of serious need for the Browns. Linebacker, they're got to find productive. What do I want to say? a productive option at the linebacker position without spending a lot of money. And a guy like DeMario Davis could do that because he's not going to be an expensive 1-year deal, I would imagine. Being 35, 36 years old, and then, tight end Jonnu Smith could be a good option for the passing game, and then you start everything off with Joey Bosa. To have Joey Bosa next to Myles Garrett and Dalvin Tomlinson and these other guys like you were talking about, Obo and Alex Wright, whew, man. And again, I broke down the defensive end position for the Browns, and Alex Wright actually had a pretty good season for the Browns. He was like quietly under the radar, had a pretty nice second year with Cleveland. So I'm excited for his prospects going forward. There's a lot of options for the Browns this offseason. I'm excited to see what Andrew Berry does. The dude is a magician with the salary cap, with free agent signings, and he's going to draft a couple studs in the draft. It's just what he does. I can't wait to see what happens, man.
Absolutely. And I like all these guys that we went over. Like, I mean, I don't think all 6 are going to happen. I don't even think 5 out of 6 will happen. Like if 2 of these happen, like winner, chicken dinner.